Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth, and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Are you feeling charitable? Then smash the subscribe button and the like button, and please do follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. We haven't spoken about James Bond and No Time to Die for a very long time, but when we have spoken about him on this channel, you know that I've been extremely concerned and worried about this film, especially when they got rid of the original director, especially when Phoebe Waller-Bridge was added as someone rewriting the script or apparently just adding some gags in. Clearly, that's not the case. I think she rewrote the whole movie. And there's a rumour going around that in this film, James Bond will have a 5-year-old daughter. I kid you freaking not. So The Guardian are talking about this. Let's give it a read. How will a 5-year-old daughter change James Bond's life? According to a new report, No Time to Die sees Daniel Craig's spy discovering he has a young child. Are CBeebies and car chases ever really compatible? By Stuart Heritage. Daniel Craig has taken us to some brave new places during his time as James Bond. We've seen him destroy his ancestral home. We've watched the death of one of his quasi-parental figures. We've seen him get his knacker smashed up with some rope. However, if reports are to be believed, then No Time to Die is going to push 007 into his most terrifying predicament yet. Parenthood. Thanks to some call sheet that had inexplicably been put up for sale on eBay, oh my god, we know that one scene shot in Italy last year features a 5-year-old girl named Mathilde. Mathilde, I think that's how you say it. The film is set 5 years after Spectre and opens with Bond in retirement with Les Sedut's Madeleine Swan. Put all that together and the facts become plain. James Bond will have a 5-year-old daughter in No Time to Die. And now suddenly everything makes sense, of course. James Bond doesn't have any time to die. He has a 5-year-old. He hasn't got time for anything anymore. I'm also the father of a 5-year-old. So I can confidently state that the film could have just as easily been called No Time to Sleep, or No Time to Shower, or No Time to Eat Breakfast sitting down, or No Time to Watch anything good on TV, because every walking moment is now soundtracked by a god-awful fan-made Sonic the Hedgehog video on YouTube. Everything is so clear now, of course. James Bond wears a sweater on the poster. He's not going to risk wearing a nice suit anymore. Not now he knows that he'll end up covered in little tiny Nutella handprints. The instant he puts it on, seriously, it's a wonder that he even found the time to coordinate his jumper so nicely. I guarantee that somewhere there is a poster drop where 007 stands around barefoot in some baggy dungarees offset with an old band t-shirt he bought at a concert back when concerts were a fun thing he could attend, and not a nightmarish palaver of screamingly expensive logistics that have to be arranged a full month in advance. So far in the entire history of 007, we have only ever seen a very small number of scenes set in his home. In Spectre, we saw a bare apartment, or with piles of books and pictures yet to be hung. At the time, it looked like the glum abode of a man whose entire identity was wrapped up in his work. Now, though, it looks like an absolute wonderland, because now the floor is bound to be scattered with stray Lego bricks and toys that were picked up for a millisecond and then discarded, and juice stains and Nutella smears, he loves Nutella, doesn't he, and cups of tea that were made in the insane hope that they might actually be drunk before they go cold, and half-finished drawings of Sonic the Hedgehog. Nutella and Sonic, he's obsessed with them. And perhaps most importantly, it goes without saying that James Bond is a crap spy now. He was never particularly good, given his alcoholism and capacity for sexual violence, but now he's awful. He can't drive any tricked-out cars anymore because every button he presses just somehow makes the Twirly Woos theme tune blare out of his speakers and full volume. He can't travel to far-flung destinations anymore because Madeleine Swan also has a job, and sometimes it's just impossible to line up their schedules. He can't womanize because all his deepest fantasies now involve him checking into a hotel and immediately enjoying a full night of unbroken sleep. He doesn't drink anymore because he knows that his daughter will wake him up at 5:30 regardless of the state of his hangover, and he can't put himself in any sort of physical jeopardy because he keeps imagining all the horrible ways that his premature death will affect the future of his child. What I am saying in this, No Time to Die is going to be a film about a very tired man filling in paperwork, then rushing back for bedtime. It's going to be brilliant, unrelated. I really can't wait until the schools open again. So basically, this is a really sarcastic article. But it does need to be discussed, fellow James Bond fans. I know that Calvin Dyson, a very, very elite YouTuber who loves James Bond, has come off of Twitter to avoid these spoilers. I did quote tweet him when he said he was doing this, so I said, well, I haven't heard anything. Then 4 hours bloody later, as usual, Calvin's right. Look, this is absolutely ridiculous. And an attempt to domesticize James Bond. There is just no justification for this. I'm assuming that it is Madeleine's child, that they have this 5-year-old child when we first kind of get reintroduced to Bond and Madeleine again. It is absolutely ridiculous. You could use it as a complication, but there's no question about it that this James Bond has already retired. He comes out of retirement and then he's going to go back to being this domesticated god, right? Leaving the new female 007 to be the new hero. Yes, that's the future of this franchise. But according to the producers, they will cast a male as James Bond when the next lot of films start. So are they going to call an end of this kind of reboot and go back to the original kind of narrative of James Bond? You know, the Dr. No narrative and all of those films, right? The 20-plus movies they did. It kind of looks like it, doesn't it? It's like, well, we're going to end this reboot. We're not going to continue it. So we might as well leave him in a happy place. It's pretty ridiculous. This film just keeps on getting more and more underwhelming as time goes on. And now you can understand why they were very happy about the pandemic and delayed the film till November, which was a very, very big delay, seeing that this film was going to be released when? March or something, or February or whenever it was going to be. I think they went under the banner. I know all the films were delayed in the end. They got there first, and I think they were happy to get there first because this film is a mess, an absolute mess. And it's one of those films, right, that's kind of had so many hands on it, and you know that's going to be a mess. We already know what happened with Justice League, with Whedon, Snyder, Terrio, you know, too many hands on it. And then it was just like a bad sandwich that you didn't have 6 months ago. You ate it and it was disgusting. And this is what this film kind of looks like it's going to be. It seems to me, and pretty obvious to everyone, that Daniel Craig shouldn't have come back and they should have just started again with whatever plans they've got with the next Bond. But instead, we've got this female taking 007's number. Yep, purposely done. A Phoebe Waller-Bridge idea, obviously, right? So we know what stratosphere she's coming from. So already we have a problem. Because if this was 008 or 005 or 004, I wouldn't have given a shit. And if they wanted to do 005 movies with this woman in it, right, she's a fine actor, I like her, it would have been awesome, right? But that's not what they want to do. They want this woman to be 007. They want her to replace James Bond. So, it's pretty clear to me, maybe they're trying to create a second franchise, a second string, an Earth 1, Earth 2 scenario, where this kind of reboot will be this new 007's remix, so they'll make her movies, which is perfectly fine. It's a shame they're going to call her 007. So in this universe, there's this 007, then they go back to the original narrative of James Bond, Dr. No from Russia with Love. So maybe they're going to go back to that. So then you've got two franchises. It's a good idea as such. I just feel that this film is going to do absolutely nothing for Daniel Craig's James Bond. And it's basically, Spectre was already an awful film. It was already the film that watered down Craig's James Bond. Craig was not happy with that film. He was not happy with people's reactions to it. Do you remember what he said? I'd rather slice my own wrist than be Bond again. but he came back for more Wonga, then pretended he always loved James Bond. But we know that Barbara Broccoli persuaded him, and she said she's kind of trying to persuade him again, but it looks like he's not coming back. He shouldn't come back. He doesn't want to come back, right? And what are the consequences of bringing him back? That he's got this total creative control over the property, which basically got rid of the original director, who's a brilliant director, Danny, I forgot his name now. He's done some excellent films. Danny Boyle, of course, right? A great director who they got rid of, probably because Daniel Craig wasn't happy with him, right? Although normally it's Daniel Craig who brings the directors in. Or it certainly was like that with Sam Mendes, wasn't it? Too much creative control, too much authority over the property, and now we come to this. James Bond having a 5-year-old daughter. Do this with any other character, it can work. But James Bond, it doesn't. Yes, I know what Phoebe Waller-Bridge is attempting to do, is to give him a reason not to die. No time to die, do you get it? At first I thought it was a hint that maybe they were going to kill him off, but it looks like he can't die. He can't be risking his life. He can't be the Bond he was before because he's got a daughter to think of. And I can see in Phoebe Waller-Bridge's tiny mind, maybe, not tiny mind, she's a very clever lady. She's a very talented lady, right? I misspoke, definitely. I've got a lot of respect for her. Killing Eve is really, really good. And her other project as well. She's a really clever lady. No question about that. But I don't think she gets James Bond, or she definitely doesn't want to get James Bond. So basically, he becomes Mr. Domestic. He's got a kid. He can't risk his life. So I can see that kind of being a thing within the story, but I just can't see the fun in it and the interest in it with this character. I just don't. I didn't like him hooking up with this woman to begin with. I didn't like the fact that he was still with her at the end of the film, and you knew it was going to. I thought it was just a happy ending. I'm not going to be a 00 agent anymore. I'm leaving with this woman. End of the story. Even though I didn't like that ending, I don't like happy endings. I like dramatic, compelling, emotionally downlifting kind of endings that keep you thinking and keep you a little bit upset and sad. That's what I like to do as a writer, and that's what I like to see. James Bond isn't a little girl character who's on the CW network. This is James Bond. So now we've got this situation where something that started so well, if they'd ever attempted a reboot of James Bond in the past without Casino Royale being so epic and compelling, people would have went nuts. But this reboot worked, and they got it wrong with Quantum of Solace, which was supposed to be a sequel, but it just seemed like the third act of a first story, and it simply didn't work as a film. And then Skyfall was a brilliant film. So basically, they've made two really good films that I can't complain about, and I always love, and I always watch. But the others are just so problematic, so underwhelming, and so watered down. And it's an absolute shame. And, Daniel Craig's a passionate guy, but he clearly doesn't understand James Bond and doesn't get it. You can evolve characters. You can change things about characters that are not in the original workings of the character. I'm fine with that, but it should work as a compelling piece of work. When I watched Smallville and it ended up that Lex Luthor knows Clark Kent when Clark Kent's a young teenager, I liked that because there's an arc there. There's a developing story there. They're friends, but they have to become enemies. For me, there's nothing apart from saying, I'm a dad now, so I've got to be careful. And for me, that may resonate with parents and other people, but I don't think James Bond should be resonating with those people. I'm miffed, and this is what's happening now. This is what's happening with films. It's bad enough we don't have enough variety in Hollywood and television and movie making and creative content now, and it's all the bloody same. And they're just reworking properties that us 80s kids grew up with, but we watched the good versions, and now this generation are watching the poor versions, though. Very loud, lots of CGI. Maybe better production values, but they don't look as good and they don't feel as good, right? And this is where we are now. So it's literally the rise of Skywalker, right? Or The Last Jedi, or something we kind of watched that we didn't particularly hate, but we didn't particularly love. It underwhelmed us, right? It's this subverting expectations. But again, it isn't Brad Pitt being handed Gwyneth Paltrow's head, like in the end of Seven, something that subverts your expectations in an awesome, compelling, dramatic way. No, this is, he's got a kid. Ray's not really special. That kind of thing. And this is where these people are, because the wrong type of people who have got no creative nous or no passion for storytelling or continuing the saga of these characters are brought in, because really their real ideology and their real agenda is to water down these toxic males. This is what it's all about. And they love us men losing our shits about it. I am powerless. You're powerless. I will go and see it. I will give it a fair crack of the whip. But I tell you what, I don't expect any diehard James Bond fan, never mind Calvin Dyson, to come back and say this was an amazing film, because the feedback I'm getting from people who saw test screenings isn't very good. It's hugely disappointing. This review is disappointing. Again, we're getting things being sold on eBay. I think they've leaked this on purpose. I really do. They want to give us fair warning. And you know something else? They want the YouTubers to lose their shit over it, because the only way they can get any marketing from a film these days is people losing their shit about something bad they're doing, because this is how political these people are now. But I want to know what you think. Comment down below. Like, share and subscribe. And I'll be back tomorrow, the next day and the day after that. And I'll be back with more Doctor Who, maybe Doctor Who videos, James Bond, DCEU videos, of course, here every day with a DCEU daily and maybe a DCEU extra if you're lucky. See you again soon. Comment down below, like, share and subscribe. Tell people about the channel. It's pretty cool.